Chapter 3. The school had cleared out by the time I found my new balance on Jackie's legs. Alejandro was gone, and I wouldn't see him until tomorrow morning. It was possible to do stalking in this form, but easier to get caught now that people could see me. The last thing that would get me close enough to Alejandro was to make the wrong first impression. Stalking seemed to have that negative vibe in the culture of ordinaries. I used my time between 3:15 p.m. on Tuesday and 7:15 a.m. on Wednesday to prepare to blend in, and that brought me to my favorite place, the library. I spent the open hours of the library studying sign language and training my hands to create the words I wanted to use to communicate. It's a good thing I have a demon mind and several thousand years' experience. Learning a language is difficult. I hid in the bathroom as the library closed, and then I couldn't help myself. I curled up on a chair in the back corner of the library, and I read poetry. I picked up dusty books, fingered the spines, opened the cover, and turned the pages. I checked Jackie's purse, but the girl didn't carry a library card. Maybe she deserved to be possessed for the rest of eternity. In the early morning hours, I spent more time in the bathroom, practicing the language in front of the mirror. Something felt wrong. I hadn't figured out what it was by the time I headed to school. I stepped in front of Alejandro as he was about to enter Mrs. Bach's class. I'd had to sneak a poetry book out of the library to start the conversation since I couldn't check out one. Alejandro bumped into me as planned, but his reflexes were quicker than I expected. He reached out, grabbed me by the elbow, keeping me from stumbling back, and catching the library book before it hit the floor. I confess, I may have let out an undemon-like squeak when he pulled me close against him. I was still getting used to the vocal cords. I stepped back. The hand he kept on the small of my back was large and strong. He supported me until I regained my balance, and then let go. Several kids laughed as they pushed into the classroom, but Alejandro held my gaze. His eyes were locked onto mine. He lifted his hand and brushed his fingers across the palm of his other hand twice. The interpreter opened her mouth, but I had prepared for this moment. "Excuse me," I signed. "My fault. I'll watch where I'm going next time." Alejandro's eyebrows came together, leaving a single wrinkle above his nose. I've studied human facial expressions for several hundred years, but it was a very different experience to have them directed at me, to be the source of his confusion, a victory. Not only did I identify his emotions, but I was the cause of it. He glanced at the title of my collection of poems. The collection included Paradise Lost to start a conversation with him, but he chose a different poem. "I like Coleridge. I've read Kubla Khan 100 times. Alejandro signed with quick motions. "Me too. I did love that poem, but a line from the poem pushed its way into my memory. A woman wailing for her demon lover. He couldn't possibly know about me. It had to be a coincidence. It reminds me of my own dreams sometimes." "Are you okay?" Alejandro asked instead of responding to my comment. Each time I signed, he stared at my face, the furrow of confusion deepening. I nodded, though my insides had not changed. My only sensation was demon hunger, a deep void of nothingness. I wanted to fill it with human emotions, if only I could figure out how. "I'm fine. We didn't hit that hard," I said. Alejandro raised one eyebrow, his scalp lifting, one ear pulling back, his lips pressed together, thinning to a line. This emotion was harder. Was it anger? Insanity? No. I recognized it after a moment. Disbelief. He didn't believe me. Alejandro waved a hand to indicate my face. "What's wrong?" I touched my eyebrows and then my cheeks and mouth. "Something's wrong with my face?" As soon as I said it, I realized what had been wrong with my practice in the mirror. The muscles in Jackie's face that react to emotions didn't work while I was in her body. No emotions, no facial movement. "I don't know," I lied. "I'm a demon after all." Alejandro reached forward and used his thumb to lift one of my eyebrows. I registered the pressure against my skin, the warmth of his hand. He used both hands to pull at my cheeks, stretching my lips tight the way his had a moment before. My essence shifted, a movement inside that was neither hunger nor emptiness. He pulled away, and I tried to make my face respond. I willed my demon essence to twitch the muscle below the small patch of hair above my eye. Nothing. I used my own hands to pull my lips back into a smile. Based on Alejandro's grimace, I had not conveyed joy. He shook his head and made a dismissive gesture. Go to class. I have something I have to do. Wait, I want to talk more. I needed more time, but his discomfort was obvious. He stepped back. You talk with your hands, make the right movements, but it's difficult to understand what you mean when your face doesn't move, your body doesn't match what you're saying. To communicate, your hands, face, and body all work together. The ammonia smell had faded, or I'd grown used to it, but my comfort in this body hadn't extended to the nerves on my face. I hadn't considered the fact that my possession would make him uncomfortable, that my effort to get close to him would backfire. Alejandro turned away from me, not toward the classroom, but facing the emptied hall. The tardy bell had already rung. I could step into the classroom, but what was the point? He was my hope. Even now, something about him made me sure he was the person who could help me change enough to be able to feel. I reached out, clinging to the fabric of his sleeve, not sure what to do. I'd lived like this for thousands of years. The hunger inside me was painful enough to make me wrap my arms around myself. I would have to fight in the final battle, empty and hungry. The emptiness seemed to freeze the air around me. Alejandro moved like he was about to pull away, but then he paused and closed his eyes, like he was listening to something far away. His face showed regret and indecision, but he didn't shake me off. I could see a strand of his emotion stretched tight as it grew from his chest, reaching out toward me. It was a deep golden color, glowing in the incandescent lights of the hallway. Instinct, the emotion that humans often call a gut feeling, but Alejandro's was different. Powerful. Alejandro stiffened as someone approached us. My essence shriveled, trying to hide while I stood completely exposed in the hallway. There, right in front of me, in the middle of Olympus High School, was a descendant of angels, glowing bright with the energy of creation, dressed in bell-bottoms and a tweed jacket, a green whip attached to his corduroy pants. The descendant had made a terrible attempt to blend in with the fashion of today, although based on the trends I'd witnessed over the last 7 decades, the descendant would be back in style in about 4 years. Before I could slink away, the descendant reached out and shook Alejandro's hand. Then he sniffed like he was trying to identify an indistinct smell. He was slow in that department. I definitely didn't smell like chocolate chip cookies fresh out of the oven. The descendant looked at Alejandro. Is this girl bothering you?